The afternoon sun hovered above the blooming gardens of Sunnyvale, casting a golden glow over the quaint houses that lined my street. Each home appeared cheerful, like a postcard come to life, with vibrant flowers leaning into the warm breeze and families enjoying time together in their yards. Laughter echoed like music floating on the gentle wind, but I remained indoors, ensconced in the sanctuary of my room. As I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a chaotic assortment of sheet music and half-finished lyrics, the open window allowed the fragrance of jasmine to dance through the air, teasing my senses with the outside world. I picked up my guitar, the smooth wood warm against my fingertips. I strummed a soft chord, letting the sound resonate deep within me, but the familiar comfort was interrupted by the sharp sound of the door swinging open. My father stood there, silhouetted by the golden light, the intensity in his eyes piercing through my moment of peace. I could feel the tension in the air shift, like a storm pressing against the horizon. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice cutting through the atmosphere like a propeller slicing through water. "You have so much talent, and here you are wasting it away." His words dripped with disappointment, and I felt my shoulders tense in response. I just need to figure things out." My voice was soft, hesitant, as if I were afraid to disturb the fragile state of emotions swirling between us. He crossed the threshold into my room, the scent of his cologne mingling with the sweeter notes of the flowers outside. "Figure things out. You are 24 years old. It is time to take action. Why not use your talent for something meaningful?" His tone was desperate, infused with his dreams and ambitions that always seemed to weigh more heavily on my heart than his love ever could. My voice faltered, the weight of his expectations smothering the urge to fight back. "This is meaningful to me, Dad," I said, leaning back on my elbows, trying to shield myself from his piercing gaze. "I don't need to act, I want to make music." "Music?" he laughed, but it was a humorless sound. "They will not pay you for sitting in a corner playing your guitar. You have the ability to be something great, someone people will recognize. An actress, Aurora, you could shine on a stage." His hands gestured dramatically, illustrating the grandeur of a spotlight that I felt was never intended for me. "I don't want to shine on a stage," I murmured, my voice shaking. I could feel the familiar tension tightening in my chest, as if it were wrapping a noose around my every word. "I want to write songs that matter, not just recite lines someone else has written for me." As I spoke those words, I could see the disappointment wash over him, darkening his features. "You are wasting your potential. You cannot throw your life away on this foolish music dream. It is what the world expects from you." I felt like a faraway star, lost in a sea of brightness, longing to be seen but also dreading the spotlight. In that moment, anger flickered to life within me, igniting a fire against the years of suffocating expectations. "You want me to be your idea of success," I shouted, the echo of my voice rushing to fill the corners of my room, bouncing against the walls like a trapped bird. "You don't see me for who I am." At that moment, my mother entered the room, her presence an uneasy tension that crackled in the air. She was a quiet observer as always, with a face that wore the lines of weariness and resignation. "Let's all take a breath, maybe step back," she suggested gently, trying to act as a buffer between us. "Aurora just has different dreams. That does not mean they're less valuable." He waved her off, dismissing her with a curt gesture. "Deborah, don't you see? This is the problem. She is not focused. She is squandering her talents, and it is going to cost her." My eyes moved from him to her, pleading without words. I felt a surge of frustration mixed with hopelessness. "I just want to make music," I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. "Is that really so wrong? Is it what you truly want?" my father challenged, moving towards me with a fierce intensity. "Or is it just a dream you conjured to escape the expectation I placed upon you?" His words punched through the air like mass meteorites crashing against my heart. From my mother I sought solace, but her expression mirrored my own, filled with that same uneasy resignation. "Aurora, think about what your father is saying. You need to allow yourself the possibility." Anger bubbled inside me, hot and wild, sparking a realization, a rebellion brewing in my heart. I was no longer the little girl he once encouraged, blinded by a father's illusions. "I'm not you. I am me," I stated emphatically, my voice stronger. "Yes, you believed in me, but what about my beliefs? Aren't they worth anything? Why can't I have a dream of my own?" Interrupting my plea, my father leaned in closer, confusion written across his features. "But you do not understand. You belong in the spotlight. You need to let the world see your greatness." "No, enough," I replied, my voice cutting through the air like a blade. "I refuse to let your goals define my life. I won't allow myself to be your puppet, dancing to a song I've never chosen." The room fell silent, the weight of my words settling into the atmosphere. I could feel the coolness of air from the window prickling my skin, grounding me amid my storm. My father stood there, the disbelief written in every line of his face, and the silence pressed between us like a wall. Finally, the silence peaked as the three of us stood in the chaos of emotions, disappointment held like a dense fog. My father's lips parted slightly, caught between disbelief and anger. "Aurora, you'll regret this," he warned, his voice suddenly lower, more restrained. "If you do not act now, you will look back with regret. I will not carry the burden of your choices." His tone shifted, pressing another crack into my already fractured heart. How could he not see that this moment, in all its rawness, was where I needed to reclaim my voice? "I would rather regret choosing my path than regret following yours," I asserted, feeling fierce pride blossom within me. But even as the words left my mouth, a small flicker of doubt danced at the edges of my consciousness. Was it wrong to desire something so opposed to what he envisioned for me? Could I pursue my music without abandoning his dreams? My thoughts whirled, but I held onto my conviction tightly. Do you really think you can make it on your own? He challenged, his voice laced with skepticism. You think this unfolding dream will pay the bills? It's not just about bills, I fired back, feeling a little braver with each word. It's about who I want to be, and I won't live my days wishing for something else. Failure flickered like a shadow at the back of my mind, but I pushed it out. The guitar lay dormant beside me, a silent partner in my defiance, and I needed to hold onto that sense of authenticity. It was my chance to step into the light, to break the shackles that bound me to this unyielding expectation. You are going to throw it all away, all the potential, my father trembled, caught between anger and a deep frayed concern. I only want what's best for you. Best for me or best for the dreams you built for me. I shot back, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Can't you see that they are not the same? What you want from me feels more like a chain than encouragement. With our hearts racing and an undulating tension filling the room, my mother's voice finally emerged, soft and steady. It is flawed to assume that having a dream means that you have to neglect the other's feelings and expectations, she interjected, her gaze shifting between us. Both of you deserve to find your own paths without guilt or anger. My father turned his sharp gaze to her. And what does that lead to? Failure. She is too young to make these choices. No, she's not, my mother countered, a fierce resilience sparking in her eyes. Everyone deserves their chance to grow, to flourish. Maybe you both deserve a chance to speak, I said finally, my voice trembling but laced with quiet strength. But I need to tell you this, if I leave this path I cannot follow you down your dreams again. This is my life. In that moment, the weight of my admission hung heavy in the air. The flowers outside offered a bittersweet scent, intertwining with my heartbreak and hope. I had spent so many years trapped in my father's expectations, but if I wanted to pursue my music, it could not be done while standing on a stage designed by someone else. I felt a tide of determination rising within me. I could choose to reclaim my identity, even if it meant facing the storm alone. The silence returned, thick and unyielding, each second stretching painfully. I could see the conflict playing across my father's face, the desires to protect and guide clashing with the emerging realization that my choices were not his to make. My mother remained a delicate serenity amid the clash of wills, embodying a quiet strength that might hold us together. Think about this carefully, Aurora, my father finally offered, his voice subdued and wavering. It is a big world out there. Not everyone is going to care about your music as you do. What if you fail? With resolve threading my voice, I replied, what if I do? In that moment, I recognized the true burden of expectations. It was not just about my father's dreams, it was also about my refusal to carry them any longer. Even if my journey was fraught with uncertainty, each decision would be mine to make. The sunlight pouring through the window felt warmer, the scent of jasmine more alive as I began to step toward a future that could truly be my own. I stood at the entrance of the family reunion, my heart thundering against my ribs as I felt the familiar weight of expectation settle over my shoulders like an unwelcome cape. The warmth of the summer sun outside felt distant, like a memory of freedom that I could barely grasp as I pushed open the door to the cavernous banquet hall. The moment I stepped inside, I was assaulted by the chaotic sounds of laughter and chatter, a jarring contradiction to the anxiety stirring in my gut. I took a deep breath and tried to square my shoulders, but it was like attempting to hold back a tidal wave with just my willpower. As I surveyed the room, I recognized the familiar faces of my relatives, each one etched with charm and warmth, their eyes sparkling with joy. But beneath their easy smiles lurked a competitiveness that was second nature to them, and at that moment I felt like the lone dark cloud in a bright blue sky. My gaze instinctively fell on my cousin, seated at the center of a cluster of family members, entirely in her element as she regaled them with tales of her newfound fame, playing a lead role on a popular television show. My heart twisted at the sight. I can't believe how lucky you are. Aunt cooed, leaning in closer, her eyes wide with admiration. You must be just bursting with excitement. Honestly, it's freeing, my cousin replied, the curve of her lips stretching into a smile that could light up the room. I always knew I loved acting, but this is a dream come true. Look at her, Aurora. My father's voice suddenly cut through the buzz of conversation, his tone dripping with the weight of comparison as his gaze flickered toward me before snapping back to my cousin. This is the kind of success we want to see from you. His words punched me in the gut, filled with unspoken expectations that encapsulated all my family's collective hopes and dreams, the kind I had tried so hard to escape. I felt my heart plummet, and for a moment I was enveloped in silence. It was as if the universe had paused just for me, allowing the weight of my father's statement to sink in fully. My cousin beamed in response, but I felt myself shrinking, becoming less of a person and more of an afterthought. Why can't you do something similar? Another relative chimed in, her face glowing with enthusiasm. You were always so talented. We loved when you performed at family gatherings. The words dripped with genuine affection, but all I could hear was the echoing refrain of inadequacy, ache deep in my chest that seemed to expand with every moment I spent surrounded by their adulation. I forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow even to me, a brittle sound lost among the warmth of familial love. Oh, I'm just pursuing my own path, I managed to stammer, my enthusiasm curdled by doubt. I could feel the waves of judgment wash over me, heavy like winter clouds. Deep down, I wanted to scream that I had chosen to go by Aurora Bennett, a name that felt fresh and untethered. a name where every strum of my guitar was a statement against the family's legacy. But the words tangled in my throat, refusing to spill out. My father glanced over at me, disappointment flickering in his eyes before he turned back to my cousin. "You should be more like her, Aurora," he said, raising his voice slightly. The statement was like a knife slicing through the thin veneer of familial support I was desperately clinging to. What I really want to do, I felt the warmth of anger blossom within me, but it became fighting words caught in my throat, is music. The word lingered, a desperate plea as I attempted to reclaim the ground stolen from me. "I'm working on an indie EP." I finally blurted out, the defiance rushing into every syllable, the air in the room suddenly feeling thick with expectation. The room fell silent and all eyes turned to me, a collective incredulity rising in the stillness. "Music," echoed my father, disbelief dancing across his features. "That is not a career, that is a hobby you indulge in to escape reality." The disdain he directed toward me was like icy water thrown across a fire. "Just because it's not what you want for me," I started, but a rush of anxiety silenced my thoughts, the clamor of his disappointment overwhelming. "Aurora," he interrupted sharply, cutting me off with a wave of his hand. "You cannot expect to survive in the music industry without the right connections. You are just throwing away your life." With every word he hurled at me, I felt the flames of my passion flicker and dim, fought back by the rising tide of self-doubt. I fought against thinking of all the producers who had turned me away, the local music venues that had rejected my requests for gigs. Those rejections felt like additional bricks layered on top of the metaphorical wall my father was constructing around my dreams, fortifying it higher with each no that echoed through my mind. I felt so small in that moment, suffocated by the expectations I couldn't escape, tightly tethered to an identity tied to my family's legacy and their vision of success. The room swirled around me, colors blending as faces blurred beyond recognition. The laughter that celebrated my cousin's achievements continued, but I felt as though I was slowly drowning underneath the surface, desperate for air yet unable to move. In that space filled with family warmth and security, I suddenly felt utterly alone. Silence strained as anger began to boil within me. The betrayal, the hurt, all blossomed together into an overwhelming desire to break free from the chains that bound me. Maybe I want to throw away that life, I thought, the storm of my emotions building like thunder in the distance, ready to burst open in a torrential downpour. I stood there numb while the chatter around me dulled to a distant hum. The question reverberated in my mind, taunting me with its biting edge. My mind flashed back to my recent attempts to reach out to producers, diving headfirst into the elusive world of gigs and opportunities, only to find each attempt crushed underfoot. "Oh, I was just letting everyone know at the last minute that I wouldn't be auditioning anymore," one of my friends had said, pity lacing her voice as she explained her own success, reinforcing what I already knew. How was I spinning dreams when I felt submerged in rejection? The anger and betrayal ignited within me, but my throat felt tight, the words of my truth cloaked beneath a heavy veil of shame. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, my heart pounding in anticipation of a plunge that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. In that moment, surrounded by warm bodies that were supposed to comfort me, I became consumed with the resolve to forge my own identity. I envisioned standing on a stage with a guitar, my voice transcending the negativity I had known for so long. I imagined the thrill of pouring my heart into music that echoed my experiences, my hopes, and ultimately my independence. Would my family ever understand? Suddenly, I felt an energy rising within me, cooling with defiance, and I took a step forward, catching my breath before speaking with more volume. "You don't get it. Music isn't just a hobby for me. It's my heart, my soul. It's what I want to do." Every syllable dripped with urgency, my tenor rising above the clamor around me. I noticed faces stiffen, some eyebrows raised in confusion, others in disbelief. The shift in the air was palpable. It felt like tension coiling around us. I looked directly at my father, searching for a flicker of understanding in his otherwise stern expression. "I want to break free from what you've created," I shouted, each word fueled by years of pent-up frustration. "This constant pressure to conform to your expectations is suffocating me." That was it, the moment when every smile, every polite nod of understanding stripped away, leaving raw honesty exposed. It was empowering yet terrifying, a dance on the precipice of anger and vulnerability. My voice trembled, yet deep down I felt stronger than I had in years. The feeling swelled within me, igniting a light I thought had been extinguished. "Maybe I will fail, but what if I achieve something more than you ever could imagine? Can you even comprehend that I have dreams too?" The room was utterly silent, a vacuum of sound as everyone absorbed what I had just unleashed. I caught sight of multiple forks of shock rippling through my relatives' faces as they looked back and forth between me and my father. For a moment, everything felt suspended in time while the sharp scent of unease hung heavy in the air. Would they finally see me? But the storm of defiance faded as quickly as it had ignited, replaced with lingering dread. My father opened his mouth, and I braced for the onslaught I was certain would crash over me like an avalanche, burying me once again under his disapproval. I trembled as he stood there, searching for the right words, his expression shifting from disbelief to something colder, more unyielding. "Fine," he breathed, a finality to his tone that struck painfully. "If you decide to throw your life away, do it alone. Don't expect our support when you fail." The weight of those words cracked the air around me, washing over my heart like an ice-cold wave. I wanted to scream, to argue, to convince him I wasn't some reckless child blindly sailing into a storm, but instead I stood there, staggered, feeling smaller than ever. In that moment, I realized the painful truth. As much as I was yearning for my freedom, I was also terrified of what that independence would cost me. But I also understood I could no longer let the fear pull me down. I turned away from the cluster of relatives, retreating from the scrutiny, sliding out of the banquet hall. I stepped outside, where the sunlight hesitated at the doorway, painting vivid hues on the ground beneath my feet. I could hear the music of the birds chirping overhead, the gentle rustle of the trees along the path, sounds that beckoned to me, sounds that whispered of freedom. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze wash over my face, mingling with the warmth of the sun. My resolve hardened. I might stumble, I might fall, but I was ready to break free. This would not be the end of my journey. It would be just the beginning. I sat in my room, enveloped in the soft, inviting glow of my desk lamp, my guitar resting on my lap like an old friend. The muffled sounds of the city outside ebbed and flowed through my window, but all I could hear was the thrumming in my chest, a strange mix of fear and determination. The family reunion I had just returned from felt like a dark cloud looming over me, filled with the disappointment and expectations that seemed to seep like rain into every corner of my life. I had kept my emotions locked away, bottled up tight until they started to crack. But in this moment, surrounded by the comfortable chaos of my cluttered room, my selected chords echoed my thoughts, a sonorous medium for my stirred soul. The heaviness of my father's words haunted me. "You have to keep the family name alive," he would often say with that blink-and-you-miss-it intensity. His voice could slice through the air, sharper than any knife. I envisioned the disappointment in his eyes, a haunting image that loomed large, reminding me of every family gathering that had felt more like an audition than a reunion. The usual banter over dinner had quickly devolved into pointed comments and veiled critiques. "When are you going to put your talent to better use?" my uncle had asked, soundlessly judging my choice to pursue music instead of following the path of fame and fortune laid out by my family. I strummed my guitar, letting my fingers dance across the strings, experimenting with melodies that felt both foreign and familiar. I had been writing, pouring my heartbreak and fury into lyrics that unraveled the confusion within me. The song Shadows and Echoes had transformed from mere lyrics to almost an out-of-body experience. Each line I crafted was infused with raw honesty, detailing my struggles and the chains I felt binding me to a sun-drenched stage, one I never wanted to be on. The more I wrote, the more I felt the darkness lift, transforming into something glorious and profoundly significant, my voice. But that voice had yet to escape the confines of my childhood home, where my father's thunderous comments awaited to crush it like a bug. I sat there with my guitar, fingers poised to strum, but deep down I felt a creeping dread. Would I ever find the courage to stand my ground, or was I destined to remain in his shadow, forever echoing someone else's hopes and dreams? The thought gnawed at me like tiny, biting ants on a warm summer day. I pushed it back, refusing to let it win. As that Friday night approached, I couldn't help but replay every moment from my family's gathering in my mind. Every snide remark from family members echoed like muffled whispers in my head. It consumed my thoughts, building up to a pressure that felt like a tightly wound spring ready to snap. As I sat there in that dim light, the idea struck me. What if we could finally air the grievances and cast the shadow aside? What if tonight was the night I told him I would no longer dance for the family legacy? My pulse quickened as I played a gentle chord progression, each strum carrying my intention, my resolve. I pulled in a deep breath, the air thick with determination and the scent of the well-worn pages of the notebook scattered around my room. I scribbled down more lines for Shadows and Echoes, a heavy yet beautiful piece, but as I combined chords with lyrics, I was interrupted by the sound of my father's footsteps on the hardwood floors. He always had an authoritative presence, a weight that turned the air in the room heavy like a dense fog. "Aurora." He called out, the tone carrying an edge that set me on high alert. "Yeah, Dad," I replied, trying to keep my voice casual as I leaned back against the pillows piled high on my bed. I could feel the tension rising even before he stepped through the door. He always seemed to have a knack for knowing when I was at my most vulnerable. "Can we talk? I need to discuss some things," he said, his voice like an approaching storm. I put my guitar down and steeled myself for the confrontation I had thought about for days. As he walked in, his eyes scanned my cluttered room, music sheets strewn everywhere, a guitar set apart from the polished instruments of my childhood. I could see the flicker of disapproval cross his face. "Your room looks like a tornado hit it," he said, forcing a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. The fake concern masked behind sarcasm hit me like a slap. I clenched my jaw, the nerves prickling my skin. "Yeah, I guess it's not a showpiece," I replied, maintaining eye contact, willing myself not to look away. He sighed, and the weight of our unspoken history seeped into the space between us. "I see you are still fixated on that hobby of yours," he said, his tone drifting into condescension. "How much longer do you plan to invest your time in it? You know it's not as secure as acting, right? You could really have a future. Our family has carved a legacy in this world." I finally summoned the will to speak up. It felt like the chains around my heart trembled with anticipation. "Dad, this isn't just a hobby for me. It's who I am. I refuse to be someone else's trophy." The words escaped my throat like a rebellious scream. His eyes blazed with rage, a flaring intensity that made everything around us seem to dim. For a moment I could see the air crackling between us, electric, ready to explode. You think you can just throw away our family name? You are throwing away everything I have worked for. Each word felt like he was chipping away at something fragile inside me. Fear gnawed at my insides, twisting me in knots. But beneath the fear there was something else, an ember of defiance that roared to life. I wasn't going to retreat this time. Somehow it felt different, as if every time I had rehearsed this moment became a reality in that split second. I want to succeed on my own terms, I said with a conviction that surprised even me. The warmth of a newfound resolve settled in my veins, coursing through me like an unyielding river of strength. It is my life, Dad, my choice. The words hung in the air, ricocheting between us like a bullet. Silence engulfed the room like a thick smoke, the tension so heavy I could almost taste it. I was struck by the way confusion and hurt flickered across his face, as if my assertion forced the mask of authority to slip ever so slightly, revealing the vulnerability beneath. He crossed his arms, his expression hardening, his stance defensive. You don't realize the privilege you're throwing away. You carry our legacy and you want to destroy it for what? Some fleeting dream. It's not fleeting. Music means everything to me. It sets me free, I countered, a fierce flame igniting within me. I felt the air shift, my heart hammered in my chest, and I could finally hear my own pulse echoing amidst the tumult between us. Acting was never my calling, I added as my voice softened to near a whisper. You wanted that for me, not me. I have spent too long trying to meet everyone else's expectations, but this time it's my turn to choose for myself. He ran a hand through his hair, eyes narrowing as if considering my words for the first time. The anger on his face began to crack, giving way to something vulnerable that flitted just under the surface. I held my breath, waiting for the storm to gather itself again. You would throw it all away, he finally asked, disbelief coloring his tone. I'm not throwing anything away, I'm rebuilding myself, I replied, my own voice calming as I navigated the treacherous waters of our conflict. You were in my shoes once, weren't you? What if you had chosen something else? What if you had wanted this freedom I seek? I held his gaze firmly, letting the silence stretch before us as I knew my words lingered in the air, testing the borders of his resolve. The more I spoke, the more I felt the trembling beneath his facade, the cracks breaking apart. I thought you want me to succeed, but in a way that made me happy, not one where I'm just a reflection of you, I added quickly. Isn't that what any good father would want for his daughter, someone who fights for their voice? He opened his mouth to respond, but his voice faltered as my words took hold of him, perhaps, just perhaps, eliciting a moment of reflection. Look, he said at last, his voice steadier. You have every right to chase your dreams, but family means something, legacy means something. I straightened my back, feeling the weight of my truth settle around me protectively. What my pursuit means, what it really means, is fighting to be seen as myself. I'm done allowing the fear to dictate my life. For a fleeting instant, we stood firmly entrenched in our opposing worlds, the sound of a distant car horn breaking through the heavy silence. I could see the battle within him, the years of fatherly expectations wrestling with the genuine love and concern he had for me. But what if, he began tentatively, what if you don't make it as a musician? What if you fail? I took that breath, letting it fill my lungs before letting it out slowly. What if I do? What if I succeed? Each challenge he threw my way became a stepping stone carved into the foundation I was building for my life. I was prepared for this bumpy road. Every doubt echoed through me, but this time I would confront it head-on. He sighed heavily, pinching the bridge of his nose. You are so much more than your passion. You are our family, and you need to realize that what you want could have consequences, he finally said, his tone softer, the anger subsiding like the aftershock of a storm passing. I understand that, I replied, every nerve in my body thrumming with intensity, but I can't live under that weight any longer. I am taking control of my life. As we both absorbed my words, the uneasy silence settled again, but this time it felt less suffocating. It was an opening, a chance to connect further rather than simply clash. Beneath the tension, I sensed the possibility of understanding, a bridge I had long thought closed. And in that moment, as the electric atmosphere began to fade, I caught a glimpse of a new road laid out before me. One that not only involved expressing myself through music, but also engaging in the complex conversation of love, expectations, and identity with my father. The confrontation was not just a dismantling of our past. It was an invitation to discover together a new future, a future that might just allow us to build a new legacy, one where shadows and echoes could coexist with authenticity. In the weeks that followed, I knew that sitting idly by was not an option. The weight of expectations had burdened me for far too long, and it was time for me to confront the shadows that had hovered over my life. With resolve running through my veins, I decided to share my truth with the world, not just as a former child actress, but as a budding musician chasing after the dreams that had always burned brightly inside of me. The very memory of my childhood fame felt distant, like a dream tragically cut short. I was ready for a new chapter, and I wanted the world to hear my story. It all started with a few frantic emails, my fingers darting across the keyboard as I reached out to local media sources. My heart pounded in my chest, a mixture of excitement and trepidation bubbling up. What if they didn't care? What if they laughed at me? But I pushed those thoughts aside. This was no longer about the timid girl looking for validation. This was about standing up for myself and letting the world know that I am so much more than my past. To my astonishment, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Local actress turned musician seeks to reclaim her identity. It was a headline that sent shivers of electricity through me. How surreal to see my story laid out for the world to read. The phone started ringing, and soon I found myself invited to perform at open mic nights and local festivals. These opportunities felt like stepping stones toward my rebirth, and I relished them. Music was an old friend beckoning me back, and each time I gripped my guitar, I felt the intoxicating power of doing something that was wholly mine. My first performance was a whirlwind of nerves and the stage an unfamiliar landscape. The spotlight beamed down on me and I could feel the heat radiating, amplifying my anxiety. My palms were slick with sweat as I strummed the first chords of Shadows and Echoes. The lyrics flowed through me, a confession of sorts, expressing my deepest conflicts and desires. As I sang, the audience's energy wrapped around me, encouragement and empathy blending seamlessly in the air. The applause that echoed in the space following my performance was like a warm embrace. It was a reminder that within this community there were people who saw me for who I truly was, not as the figure molded by my past. Yet, even in the midst of my newfound purpose, a twinge of guilt gnawed at my heart. I thought of my father, still struggling to accept how my choices had led me away from the prescribed path he envisioned. He had been there in my childhood, guiding me, directing me toward a future that had apparently crumbled with my departure from acting. I often wondered if he could see how thriving felt from the stage in the way I saw it. It was a source of sorrow I carried with me. Moments of joy at the applause turned bittersweet when I thought of his absence. I wished hopelessly that I could show him the waves of affirmation that crashed over me with every performance. Weeks turned into months and my music began to gain momentum. I could feel the world shifting. People were indeed listening. My heart raced with exhilaration as more doors opened. Yet amid this surge of positivity, the notion of family loomed larger than ever. It wasn't just that I wanted to share my journey with them, it was that I desperately craved their acceptance. I finally mustered the nerve to invite my family to my official EP release concert. Rehearsing the invitation became a mantra for me. Each day I would whisper it under my breath, hoping the words would somehow transform my unease into brave resolve. You have to do this, I would tell myself, aiming to push past the fear that had held me captive for so long. The night of the concert felt surreal, almost dreamlike. The venue radiated warmth and buzz, the dim lights casting a soft glow over the audience, filling the air with an aura of anticipation. My hands trembled as I carried my guitar on stage, where the spotlight awaited me, casting a circle of illumination around me. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady my racing heart. I could hear the murmur of the crowd, a gentle wave of support washing over me as I strummed the opening chords of my set. Each note felt electric, merging into an offering of vulnerability and strength all at once. As I played, I gazed into the sea of faces, searching for familiar ones among the unfamiliar. Then, like a lighthouse through fog, I spotted him. My father seated near the back, his presence a mixture of anxiety and apprehension. I felt a surge of tenderness and resolve. I was determined to bridge whatever gap had grown between us. I invited him against his reservations into my world that night. This was more than just a performance, this was a declaration. As the final notes of my song hung in the damp air, silence enveloped the room for what felt like an eternity before the applause thundered back to life. I opened my eyes and there he was, my father, tears glistening on his cheeks, mirroring the emotions in my own heart. In that moment, the noise of the crowd faded away, as if the universe had drawn a curtain around us, pulling us into our own little world. I could barely breathe. I knew what those tears meant. He had finally begun to see me, to understand the depths of my journey. The pains, the struggles, the yearning for freedom that had brought me here. Once the crowd began to disperse, I did not hesitate. I sought my father out, my heart pounding as I approached him, uncertainty warring with hope inside me. Dad, did you see how they loved my music? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, almost afraid to shatter this fragile moment. He nodded, still blinking back tears. Aurora, I did not understand at first, but I see it now. You are more than just my daughter, you are a talented musician, I am proud of you. His words wrapped around me like a comforting blanket, dissolving the fears that had knotted in my stomach. The walls between us shifted, allowing the light of understanding to seep in. Really, you mean it? I asked, the disbelief lifting like mist in the morning sun. I had longed to hear those words for what felt like an eternity. To hear him speak them now felt almost surreal, like the ripples of change moving across calm water. I do, he replied, his voice steady but laden with emotions. I never wanted to hold you back, but I know I did. I see now that you found your way to who you are meant to be, and for that I cannot help but admire you. My heart swelled, my spirit flaring, liberating fires anew. It wasn't just acceptance, it was respect. We were no longer bound by chains of expectation, but instead woven together with threads of love and understanding. All the struggles, all the words left unsaid between us seemed to fade into the background, softening like the fading chords of my music. In that sacred space, amid the remnants of applause and laughter mingling in the room, it felt as if we were standing on the precipice of a new beginning. I had begun to craft my own narrative, and it was one of vibrant colors filled with expression and truth. As I embraced my father, the weight I had carried for so long began to dissipate. The chains that once bound me shattered into countless shards, scattering away as I took a deep, cleansing breath. "Thank you for coming, Dad. It meant the world to me that you were here," I told him, the sincerity of my words echoing in the space between us. "I will always be here, Aurora, I promise." The night lingered on, but the lingering ache of fear and uncertainty melted away. I was finally free to live my life on my own terms. A new chapter opened, and I was ready to write it with every note and lyric that flowed from my heart. I had reclaimed my identity, and in the process, I had found a way to heal the fractures within my family. For the first time, I felt the stars align above us, illuminating a path of hope that we would traverse together as the days turned into weeks after my EP release. I could feel my life transforming in ways I had longed for. Each morning, I awoke to the soft golden light filtering through my window, illuminating the space around me like a gentle embrace. It reminded me of how far I had come, the weight of my past slowly lifting, replaced by a new lightness in my heart. Warmth of acceptance from my father sparked a new sense of hope within me, intertwining with the emerging success of my music. My debut single, Shadows and Echoes, became an anthem of defiance for my generation, its haunting melody and poignant lyrics echoing deep within the hearts of those who felt unseen. Just yesterday, I received a message from a listener who wrote, "Your song changed my life," and I couldn't help but smile at the pure power art can have when it connects with someone's soul. I began receiving invitations for collaborations with other musicians in the industry, my phone buzzing with opportunities I had only dreamt of a year ago. I flipped through messages, each a spark igniting the fire of ambition within me. I was ecstatic but also cautious. The industry could be demanding and unforgiving. Yet it felt surreal to see my dreams manifest, blooming like wildflowers after a rainstorm. Even more so, the genuine support from my family seemed to ignite a rekindled spirit that had once been snuffed out. I remembered a time when my father's critical glare felt like a spotlight, exposing my flaws rather than nurturing my abilities. But now, it was different. It felt as if he had stepped into the light with me, ready to celebrate my victories instead of shunning the shadows of my failures. Together, we began to navigate our relationship with a newfound understanding, the past slowly giving way to hope for the future. My mom often joined me in the studio, her voice blending with mine in a harmony that resonated within the very walls of the sound booth. It was one of those evenings when we were in the studio, surrounded by a perfect chaos of instruments and sounds swirling in the air. I looked over at her as she hummed the melody to a new song. "Mom, your voice gives it life," I said, laughing as I tried to keep a straight face. She chuckled, a bright, warm sound. "It looks like I still have some magic left in me. Just don't forget this when you're famous, dear," she teased, her eyes twinkling. I felt such joy in those moments, a bond tightening between us as music wove our hearts together. My dad started attending my gigs. Each performance was a testament that even broken bonds could be repaired. He sat in the audience, proud and beaming, his presence becoming a comforting fixture at my performances. After every show, he would come striding over, his face lit up. "You were amazing tonight, Aurora. I don't know why I waited so long to support you. Watching you up there, it's like seeing you blossom right before my eyes." Tears threatened to spill over, but I held them back, emotions swirling within me like a whirlwind. "Thanks, Dad. Your support means everything. I wanted this more than anything." We slowly healed. Laughter replaced tension as we shared stories over dinner and celebrated each other's successes. Our family dinners transformed into joyful gatherings filled with animated conversations. I learned to cherish the small moments with them, stealing glances across the table as I realized how those faces, once shrouded in misunderstandings, were expressions of pride and love. "Do you remember that time you tried to make pasta and almost burnt the house down?" I recalled one evening, my laughter spilling over like wine from a cup. My mom burst into laughter, nodding. "You mean when you saved my kitchen from a complete disaster? I owe you one for that." The warmth spread through me like sunshine bathing my skin. We became a team, building each other up rather than tearing each other down. It brought a sense of healing I desperately craved, though still clouded by remnants of mistrust. On a particularly quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and twilight settled in, my father confessed to me, his voice shaky yet sincere. "I was so afraid to lose you, Aurora. I did not realize that I was blocking your path to find yourself. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that love means letting you bloom on your own." His words resonated deeply within me like a beautiful melody, and in that instance, I felt a burden lift. It was the kind of revelation that wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket on a cold night, cradling all the hurt and confusion from my past. "I understand, Dad," I replied, feeling a weight I didn't even know I was carrying dissolve. "I think we both learned some hard lessons, but I'm grateful for how far we have come. Your support means the world to me." Tears glistened in his eyes as he smiled, the distance between us shrinking to virtually nothing. Yet the universe had more surprises in store for me. After several busy months during which I poured my heart and soul into writing and creating, I received an unexpected call from a prominent label interested in signing me. It happened one afternoon when I was sprawled on my couch, scribbling lyrics in my notebook that smelled faintly of coffee and sunshine. My phone rang, its tone interrupting the organic hum of the quiet room. The moment I picked up the phone, I felt my heart race like a tambourine in the rhythm of my most upbeat song. Hello, I answered, a flicker of nervous anticipation dancing along my spine. Is this Aurora Bennett? Came the voice from the other end, smooth like silk yet firm with authority. Yes, this is she. We love your music, Aurora. Your candid lyrics and unique sound have really stood out. We believe you are destined for greatness. The voice spoke with a conviction that sent shivers of excitement throughout my body. I couldn't help but smile, stifling the urge to leap from my chair out of sheer excitement. Really? You mean that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, filled with disbelief. Yes, we do. We'd like to discuss the possibility of signing you to our label. Your talent is extraordinary, and we see you achieving incredible things in this industry. In that exhilarating moment, I felt like a phoenix rising from the ashes. I could hardly process the magnitude of what was happening. This is amazing. I don't know what to say. Even my own voice sounded somewhat distant, as if I was dreaming. You don't need to say much. Just know we see a vision for you and we want to make it a reality. Let's set up a meeting soon to discuss details. With a sigh of relief, I realized that life began anew. The recognition and acknowledgement from industry professionals filled me with an unfamiliar yet intoxicating sense of power. My spirit had flourished amid the battles of betrayal and expectations laid upon me. I was no longer a captive of family ties, but a victorious warrior, ready to conquer the future as myself. My journey was only beginning, but I knew I had the power to turn pain into artistry, to take my struggles and craft them into songs, igniting passions within others just as they did for me. Shadows and Echoes was no longer just about my pain, but a vehicle of expression, a means to connect not just with myself but with so many others searching for their light in the depths of darkness. Life as Aurora Bennett was no longer about fulfilling the dreams my father envisioned. It was about embracing the artist I was always meant to be. The call ended, leaving a sweet lingering buzz in my veins. I took a moment to breathe, every inhale filling me with potential. My phone lay in my lap and I gazed out at the world, the golden hues of the sunset spilling colors across the sky. I imagined all I could achieve, each new path unfolding before me like a well-worn map guiding lost travelers to discovery. I could see my future: interviews, collaborations, and endless gigs where I would pour my soul into every note and every lyric. The thought sent a thrill down my spine. I got up and made my way to the piano set against the wall, my fingers dancing over the keys as I composed a new melody inspired by this moment. I could hear it evolving, the chords rising and swelling, paintings of my hopes layering over the canvas of sound. With every note I felt closer to myself, to my truth, and I knew I would share my story with the world not just through my music, but as a testament to resilience, a promise that even from the depths of despair, people can rise and reclaim their identities. As the last notes lingered in the air, I smiled, knowing that every echo of my song held the spirit of my journey, a reminder to embrace the present and look forward to the future. The mind might hold grudges, but the heart has an extraordinary gift for forgiveness. The warmth of acceptance blazed bright, filling every vacant space with love and possibility. Aurora Bennett was ready not just to face the world, but to conquer it one song at a time.